Hello viewers, my name is Shamim Mahmood and right now I am in United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and we are going to meet the head of the UNODC Pakistan, Mr. Jeremy Milsom. Thank you very much, Mr. Jeremy Milsom, for being with us. Milsom, please describe about the what UNODC is working, what are UNODC is doing in Pakistan. Will you please describe?
My name's Jeremy Milsom and I'm the representative of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Pakistan. I've actually worked for UNODC for more than 20 years. The first part of my career was in Southeast Asia, mostly in Myanmar, and then the last decade has been in Afghanistan and then Uzbekistan, and now here in Pakistan. I also have a regional program responsibility, so I support also a program connecting Pakistan with Afghanistan, Iran and the 5 Central Asian countries. So it's a long career I've had with UNODC. Now the United Nations Office on Crime, we have 5 pillars. We have quite a broad mandate, and these relate to many treaties and instruments which the member states sign, and we have the role to support countries to address these issues. So the first is the world drug problem, dealing with the trafficking of drugs and their precursors, and also prevention and treatment of drug use disorders. Then the second pillar is dealing with transnational organised crime, which of course is quite a challenge and requires the cooperation of member states. And this includes issues such as human trafficking, smuggling of migrants, cybercrime, wildlife trafficking and many other issues. The third pillar is corruption and economic crime, which can be quite a drain on the resources of member states and needs to be addressed in a united manner. The fourth is actually counter-terrorism. We have the responsibility to deal with counter-terrorism around the world. And the third is more generally on criminal justice and outreach to make the world safer and work with communities and societies on crime prevention and such issues. So it's quite a broad mandate. Here in Pakistan we have quite a large program, and we have again 5 pillars. So the first pillar is dealing with the drug trafficking and interdiction, including work on borders, also human trafficking and cybercrime. The second pillar is rule of law and criminal justice. So we work all around the country actually strengthening work on rule of law from first response to a crime, victim protection, through to links between the police and the judiciary, and right through to prisons and having proper prison conditions and so on. The third is again prevention and treatment of drug abuse. Fourth is counter-terrorism, and we have a regional program pillar as well. So that in a nutshell is the sort of scope of UNODC and what we do globally and in Pakistan.
That's good. Since you mentioned that you have been in Afghanistan as well, and it's been reported that Afghanistan can be called the hub of these narcotics and all these stuff. So how do you handle all this situation in Pakistan?
Well, it is a challenge because of the insecurity in Afghanistan. In 2020 we saw a 37% increase in the level of land under opium poppy production, and this is the third highest figure recorded. Most of the cultivation is in insecure areas outside of the control of the government in Kabul, so it's a very big challenge. The production there accounts for roughly 85% of the world's illicit production, so it's a major challenge for Afghanistan and has an impact on the people there, and a major challenge for the region, where we bring together Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran and the Central Asian countries to share information on what's happening with drugs, to share information on seizures, the types of drugs, how they've been analysed, and very much promoting this work so that the countries can work together and interdict the drugs. Pakistan is to be applauded. Pakistan, Afghanistan and Iran together sees more drugs, illicit drugs, than any other country. And that's very significant, because Pakistan's a transit country, so these drugs are going elsewhere. So seizing large quantities of drugs here is protecting, you know, other countries beyond Pakistan's borders as well. So it's a big challenge for the region, and it's one which we work on with regional responses as well. Another important element of the challenge in Afghanistan is that it's poverty related. So the vast majority of the people cultivating the opium poppy are doing to survive, to meet their basic needs, where we help communities work on listed alternatives to poppy and develop markets. And Pakistan worked on this years ago very successfully, and it stopped any illicit production in the country and had very successful programs. And that experience is also, you know, helping our work in Afghanistan. So it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge for the region, and this is how we work together with the countries to address it.
Mr. Jimmy Milsom, since we are facing the COVID-19, and I would like to ask how UNODC promote the scientific information and the counter misinformation this pandemic.
That's a very good question. This Saturday, 26th of June, is World Drug Day, and the theme of today's celebration is Share Facts on Drugs, Save Lives. A UN General Assembly special session on the world drug problem in 2016. The countries of the world agreed on a resolution that drug use disorders are a multifactorial health issue. And that's a very important factor as well, because there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding of those who get caught up and suffer from the dangers of drug abuse. And it's really important that we unite families and communities to support the people who have got these disorders as victims and from a health perspective, so that they can be treated safely in the community. At the same time, we share, you know, the science on how we can work together to counter the traffickers. Resolution 42-112 in 1987 that actually sets 26th of June as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Trafficking. So it's really about, you know, bringing people together at all levels of society to understand the problem and to understand the dangers and work together to counter it.
In this regard, how do you engage people to support this cause?
In the last week, we've had quite a number of activities engaging with media and communities, and there'll be a bike ride as well. So it's the messaging part of it is really important, and it's not just something that happens today. We advocate all throughout the year to the best of our ability. We have media stories, and we have a Twitter account and a web page, and we try to advocate and build understanding of these issues. We do hope to work in partnership with the government to do a larger campaign in the coming year, especially targeting youth around the country, so that there can be better understanding of the drug problem. So it's a very important part of what we do.
Advocacy and capacity building is part of UNODC. In this regard, what type of assistance UNODC provide to the officials in Pakistan?
Every single week there is one or more capacity building training taking place around the country. Often we do also training of trainers, so it's not like one-off training, because, you know, there's a lot of rotation in the public service here, and so we're building a training capacity within departments trainers that can continue to train new people as they come in and progressively and systematically strengthen Pakistan's capacity in line with international standards to tackle all these important issues.
Statistically, how many number of the people are using drugs in Pakistan?
In the last survey, it found that in the past year, more than 6.7 million people in the country had used drugs, and of those, about 4.25 million used regularly. Of that figure, 430,000 had injected drugs. 500,000 deaths from drug use disorders. Half of those linked to liver disease related to hepatitis C. The number of users in the past year were 275 million globally. That's up from 226 million a decade ago. A part of that increase is of course due to population growth, but with the death rate doubling, what it's showing is that it's suggesting that drug use is becoming more harmful.
So is there any gender discrimination among the users?
Not only in Pakistan but across the world, incidents of gender-based violence has increased during the COVID pandemic. And this is another area where we do a lot of work hand in hand with the government. We've had a lot of training of trainers programs on addressing gender-based violence. We're working with the police forces in the province to train women in the police forces as first responders, because often it's difficult for male police to talk and engage with female victims. So the gender is a very important factor in all the work that we do, and we have programs to address this. The challenge is of course going from small interventions and small pilots to having a sort of institutionalised response and a strengthened response throughout all institutions in the country.